Before we go on, I do want to say that don't be afraid to draw a line on your sampler to follow, to make it, to kind of train, to teach your eye how to stitch straight. These samplers do not necessarily need to be perfect. These are for you to practice and also to use for reference in the future. So don't be afraid to take a pencil and lightly draw a guideline for yourself for all the stitches. The next stitch on our sampler goes by two names. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as a sink stitch. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as a prick stitch. And this is a stitch that will invisibly join fabrics together. And it's usually done by sewing in the ditch. So this is what you may have heard instructors refer to as stitching in the ditch. This is hand stitching in the ditch, and usually is found on bound buttonholes or maybe the jets or welts of a pocket. You have to be careful with this stitch in that if you pull a little too tightly, you'll get the result of what we call dimples in the fabric, and you don't want that. So let's go on and I'll show you how to do this stitch. The prick stitch or the sink stitch actually is the exact same process as the back stitch, except you're not going to come back all the way to the previous stitch. You're just going to take a little tack. So you're going to start off like you did with the back stitch, except when you come back, you're only going to come back a few threads. And then you're going to come out the other side. So it's the same as the back stitch, except you're just taking tiny stitches now, which makes it a prick stitch. This stitch can also be used as a decorative stitch. So if you wanted like this little dot thread, almost embroidery type look to your jacket, you can use this in addition to making it functional. This is actually a great stitch. You'll see this in really expensive couture garments as an understitch. And if you remember, your understitch is the stitch that holds your facing down so you get the nice clean edge around your armholes and your neck. So that's what the prick stitch looks like. And let me show you how it actually functions in a welt. I've mocked up a little welt so that I can show you exactly how this stitch really offers its best benefit. So you want to start out by going inside to your seam and just coming out a little bit further than what you want. But I'm coming out right through the seam. And now what I'm going to do is stitch into the seam. I'm going stitching in the ditch and coming out again through the ditch. The nice thing about using contrasting thread is you can see how much it's really going to show, so you can kind of get a feel how well you're doing. Again, you don't want to go any more than 3/8 of an inch. So again, remember, this is the same as a back stitch. So now I'm coming back to go forward, except I don't have that straddle that I had before. I'm just taking a little stitch, a little prick stitch or a little sink stitch. So it's sinking in to the seam. I'm picking up my welt, and I'm going to show you the other side. And you can see here some of this is my machine stitch, but where I've hand stitched is from here to here, and it's going to help to keep my welt secured so it won't flap around. So that's really one of the best functions for the sink stitch in the case of tailoring. It's also used to put in invisible zippers. But in this case, for tailoring for this course, we'll be using this on our welts and our bound buttonholes.